What's up, y'all? You're hanging out with Yaya today, and we're watching Untapped Hip Hop TV.
Oh, we need the food, we need the food, we need the food.
I'm Aye Brook. I'm from the Inland Empire, more specifically Rialto, California. Born and raised Monterey Park, California, and then moved out to the IE when I was like 5 years old. I'm a artist, musician, singer, rapper, producer, engineer. Overall, I would say I'm on my 10-year mark right now. So coming up on that, more than 10,000 hours, I think now. But yeah, man, what was it? What was the fun? Honestly, man, I think like high school, seeing rap battles during passing period or at lunch, like just seeing that and seeing how quickly you could just create this like mass of people that wanted to see what you're doing or what you're saying, or even if you're just beatboxing, or if you're incorporating some type of ad lib for the homie while he's rapping or something. It was just like fun to see that, like at that level at such a young age, that kids in high school were like really gunning for each other, like really hurting feelings that you would go to third period with your feelings hurt because somebody talked about your mom or your uncle or your auntie, and it was real. It was like some people really catch feelings, but seeing how much emotion came from just that was like, oh, I should probably jump into this, something that I could do or would want to do. So a lot of the rappers that I grew up around early on was like Selfie, he's from the IE too, and his older brother LZ, who produces, makes beats and writes, does the same, like artist, MC, producer. But those were like a lot of my close homies, growing up, and so seeing how they were, into the music game in terms of hip hop, in terms of underground, it was like, okay, like I wouldn't say I'll use them as an example to where the direction I need to go in, but they were definitely like, a young influence on me at a young age, because they had already established like the music style that they wanted, that they liked, that they were into, and so just seeing it, being from the same culture, I was like, oh, cool, like, my brown and black brothers and sisters are doing something that they love to do, and I see that they're having fun with it. So let me, see where I could fit into the whole spectrum. But it was definitely like hearing them rap and hearing other homies rap, because everyone had their own clique, their own group, in high school, or their own rap thing going on. So seeing where that was going, I was like, okay, so if I just start, writing some stuff down and start recording some stuff, I could probably come up with something, and then that led into production, because then I was like, well, who's gonna make my beats? Like, who's gonna make these hits or who's gonna, put these rhythms together? And I think naturally I have rhythm, so I wasn't too far off from trying to understand like how to put and arrange something together like that. And then it just came with time. I had a friend in high school who also DJ'd, and his older brother had the Reason software at that time, which is like the first version of it, and it came out. And he had told me, he's like, hey man, my older brother tried to use this program, but he gave up. Like, I heard you were trying to make beats and do your thing, so you want to try it out. After that, dude, literally, like, the rest is history, because I just was hooked on it. I'm like, yo, like, everything that I thought I could do or wanted to do, I can actually do it with this program, and it's all right there, and I just gotta, like, learn it. So I didn't do no homework for, like, 4 or 5 days. I just stayed literally, like, on the computer, and, I had, like, an old compact or something like that, like a super old compact. So it was, crashing regularly, so I learned about that, too, early on. It was like, oh, computers crash and you lose everything. But you don't, because it's on the hard drive. So if you know how to save that, So I learned a lot really early on in terms of like the technology and beats, and incorporating that with already kind of understanding like rapping and writing and flowing, and just listening to hip hop, because I used to listen to a lot of Black Moon, used to listen to a lot of Smith & Wesson, used to listen to a lot of Pete Rock's production. So those are like early influences for sure, and then of course, you have your Alchemist, your Madlib, like start learning about them, Jay Dilla, I learned about him like literally the month he passed away. I didn't know about him before then, because I just didn't know about him. And then I was listening to radio station, and they were just playing nothing but Jay Dilla like all day, and I'm like, yo, how come I haven't heard this, I would say like being happy with something, like being really, really decided on something, was like a huge part of getting to where I'm at now, because before it was like I would make something and I just wouldn't put it out, I wouldn't show anyone, because I really felt like, it just wasn't ready. And I wasn't ready, to hear what people had to say about it too, because I know that that's part of it. You got to have really thick skin sometimes to hear those good and bad feedbacks about your stuff.
What were you afraid of? Just the feedback, or?
Yeah, just at a young age, you're afraid of rejection, and in terms of like something that you create, essentially from nowhere, just in the middle of your mind, you come up with an idea and then someone just like shoots it down. It kind of hurts a little bit, but learning how to like dodge that hurt, and then ultimately like maneuver into only, okay, now I'm making stuff where I know like this person's gonna like it, this person's gonna like it. There's no question about it. But that getting to that and that road is like very bumpy and very uncertain sometimes, because it will test your passion. It will test like, is this really what you want to do, or is it just something that you're doing for recognition, or something you're doing for fun? Like, you want to be rock star, or you want to play rock star? Because there's really two different sides to it. You know what I mean? The real rock star is in the studio 12 hours working. The other one is just the face of it. So I wanted to be the dude working and really building a name and a foundation, like not just for me, but for anybody that I was working with at the time. Like, if you feel that those goosebumps, like, or just the anxiety of wanting to put something out because you feel like it's that good, those emotions kind of tell me like, yeah, this is something that I'm ready to put out or ready to distribute, or because if I'm not really feeling like, because again, I could have felt like I want to put something out a month ago, but the timing might have not felt right. Even though I felt right about it, outside of the music, I felt like the times weren't right. So I got to come back and really pick, what works, what doesn't work. But usually just that, man, just the gut feeling. I've learned, I guess, to trust my own instinct now, because before I would go against the grain and I couldn't, I would just be juggling these ideas and I couldn't figure out what I want to land on. But once I started, realizing, I think I put enough time to just be able to say to myself, like, I'm ready. Like, I'm ready. This is ready and I'm ready. And if anybody has anything else to say about it, that's on them. But ultimately, because I'm behind it, so I got to make sure, like, if I'm decided, like, cool. But again, that just came with time and understanding myself, kind of coming back to those old roots of just being raw with it, just taking ownership of what you do, you know what I mean? And a lot of those times, like, I forget about those things because I'm not thinking about that. Since I started, I was never in it for money, fame. It was just really fun to create music and make things that sound really dope that people have never heard. But everything else started falling into place later, so I started to realize, like, I could be more serious about the business side, and I can actually, like, create not a formula, but just something where I know, like, this works, so I'm gonna do what works for me. And anybody that needs help, figuring that out too, like, that's kind of why I got into engineering, because I felt like, I could maybe assist or do other things, not just in music, like creating music, but the quality of it and the polish of it, because to me that became the most important thing after learning arrangement and production. Is like, okay, well, how are you going to showcase it? How are you going to present it? Is it mixed? Is it mastered? Are levels sitting right? Is everything, does it feel good to you when you hear it? Is there a reaction? Do you even have to think about it? And so limiting those questions over time was like a goal to be able to see myself in that light in order to like move up, in just my production and my sound and everything. The name of the project is Trabajo Leve, and that translates to mild work. And the whole concept is pretty much just like I said, taking that time to give yourself a little bit of credit for what your abilities are and what you're able to do, because that can definitely grow into something else, and to help push yourself, into a brighter light, or into, something more promising, or, more just beneficial for yourself, for your self-improvement. And honestly, like, the simplicity of how I could translate the English bars into Spanish was like a plus, because I didn't have to use so many words, and I could really simplify my concepts. But two, I just felt like it was more natural, because I wasn't forcing what I wanted to say. And I mean, yeah, I'm using American cadence in a Spanish flow, from like American hip hop, but it just worked. I don't know, it just worked. And you know, the beats were right at the time, everything was coming together, so I kind of just went with the flow, and that's what kind of helped me feel like feels right. And there was a time like when I was writing, I think it's the fourth track on the project, third and fourth track on the project. But I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I got teary-eyed. Like my eyes, like I was really like, you know, choked up about like, damn, like, you know, I wrote some shit that made me feel like I needed this. You know, this is like some vitamins or some medication or some therapy that I didn't even know I needed. But until after I wrote it, recited it, recorded it, I was like, yo, this is, you know, some real stuff, some real deep stuff. So
What's
yeah.
the name of that track?
Escúchame bien.
What's that mean?
That means hear me well.
Okay.
Yeah. It's my first strictly solo Spanish EP. I had an English EP that I was doing or working on beforehand, but I decided to just use those records as singles. But I wanted to put this out first because I just feel like it's so necessary to be out, you know, in rotation right now. And not just with, you know, like the community and the generation that I know, but like younger generations and older generations who might have not heard this type of content yet. Because again, like this whole project, I'm not doing any name dropping, any brand referencing. There's really nothing except like self-motivational words. The mindset to, like, when I even started it was like, you know, I didn't necessarily feel like I was in a funk where I, you know, I don't know what to do or how do I find myself. Like, it wasn't none of that. It was just more so like experiences that I had when I was a kid, you know, and sometimes when you're a kid, like, it carries on to your adulthood where you might feel like you don't have a voice or you don't have worth or you don't have a value. You know, there's like no value to your existence. And not to be like overly depressed about it or anything, but just, you know, really like even just a little small thought like that could shift, you know, a lot of things. And I noticed myself like getting into a space where I wasn't really as focused on the creative part. I was more focused on like, what are people gonna think, or how am I gonna approach this, or, you know. But once I felt like I was really grounded in myself and like understood, you know, where I come from and what I know in my experiences, you know, that plus the feedback I was getting from a lot of the youth at some of the shows that I was performing these Spanish records, it just solidified it. It was like, yo, like I see the positive coming from it, and I want to build on that. You know, I want to make sure that whatever I do, whatever I leave behind is like extremely positive for me, you know, and it has the right, you know, the right tone for the people that are listening to it. And again, it's not like, you know, the reason why I left a lot of the name brands and the referencing, you know, like modern hip hop or old school hip hop, you know, usually does, was because it was not really about me. It was like, yeah, the music and everything, I'm the one doing it, but it's not really about like me trying to outshine or outdo anyone. It's just me trying to better myself, you know. And I felt like if I put something like this out, you know, I can listen to it, and other people who might be in the same mental state, you know, could definitely benefit from it. And, you know, they're just like, it's like a mantra. It's like a project that's just full of mantras.
What would you say is your biggest setback from reaching what you would call success? And how would you recommend or suggest that myself or the next up-and-coming artist or creator should overcome that specific setback that you feel is the biggest setback for you?
Man, I think one of the biggest setbacks, honestly, is not being decisive. Like, because, you know, I could blame it on anything. I could blame it on bad relationships. I could blame it on finances. I could blame it on anything that I want. But ultimately, it comes down to me. Because I didn't need money to make music. I didn't need money to put content out that, you know, I could create in my mind and make tangibly, like physically available. But deciding on when I wanted to make these things happen, you know. And I guess you could throw procrastination, you know. And I was doing a lot of things, man. I was working 2 jobs, going to school, you know. 2 jobs got overwhelming. I worked 1 job, went to school, then school and work got overwhelming. I just didn't go to school, then just worked. And ultimately it was my decision to do those things, you know. But I was still making music. Like, I was still in some way trying to figure out how to make and do what I love to do. And honestly, like, yeah, you know, there's a couple different ways you can make it or you can do things and be successful. And I mean, I've always learned, you know, one approach, you know, you take the academic route, you square up and you make that happen for yourself, and that's a guarantee, because you can definitely, you know, unless something happens on the road where you're physically unable to do it, but for the most part, you keep, you know, your head on a swivel, you can make it. You know, the other ways to do it is you make your connections. You meet the right people, somebody puts you on, you're set. And then I think for me, the only way that I saw myself really getting into it, because I wasn't trying to sell out, I wasn't trying to cut corners, and I wasn't trying to, you know, like, showcase myself in a way that made me look or feel like, you know, I'm dependent on somebody, you know. And that just came down to just literally just staying on top of it. Like, don't stop, you know, because if I would have stopped, then everything would have stopped, you know. And I felt like as long as I'm persevering and keeping, like, true to myself, you know, I'm pretty sure things are going to work out. And I guess it's just that, man, like, keeping that mindset of, like, yeah, everybody has their stresses, but I never really stressed about, like, not making it. You know, I never really saw myself not getting somewhere that I wanted to be, because that wasn't in the cards, and that's not something that everyone's like, oh, you got to be realistic, or you got to think, like, what if this happens, or what's your plan B? I'm like, you know what, man, like, I don't got a plan B. Like, my plan A is my plan B. Young artists on the come up, learn as much as you can about what it is you want to do, learn all the ins and outs, learn the business, make a business plan, you know, execute it, make sure that you hold yourself accountable, because it's nobody else's job to show you or to teach you or to make you understand something that you don't know. You know, you definitely got to be 110% involved in what it is you want to do. Don't let anyone tell you or give you, you know, any advice on how to do something. If you don't feel it in your gut, man, honestly, trust your instinct. You know, if you go against your instinct 9 times out of 10, like, shit gets fucked up. So as long as you as long as you hold yourself accountable and you follow your instincts, you know, you'll get somewhere further than where you even imagine. Shout out to Aye Brook on Twitter, AYE_Brook, or reach out to Brook on Instagram, AYE_Brook. Those are probably the best ones, you know, because I like going live. I like going live in my studio. I like smoking with certain fans. You know, I like just being involved in that sense, you know. And social media is a really quick way to bring the whole world into my space. So yeah, man, I would say just reach out to me on those platforms. If you type the name up, I'm sure one of the two will come up, either Twitter or Instagram. But yeah, those will probably be the best ones. Hey yo, gotta be able, a highly capable crusader making beats and rhymes to break you. Don't challenge them unless you fathom thoughts of being stable. What you lack is what I gain. Spit 2 coats and paint again, leave you to dry, put you to shame. Orange shambles or whatever you prefer, life is a gamble. Spit your sickest lyrics, cut you to samples, wear my enamel down the root canal. Animal tactics is the only route to power. All you cowards stay living in shadows, hiding from the light, cause I devour per hour. That's 60 minutes that I'm giving to diminish you. Gimmicks can't understand how you living. Too timid, I'm limitless, infinite. Man, that's the basics.
Booze hungry. Hey. Booze hungry. Hey. Booze hungry. The fat man. Never been on some lazy shit. What you hear about me like I'm always on some crazy shit.